If you've ever been part of a small team, you know exactly how it is. Everything moves at lightning speed. Everybody's juggling a million different jobs. And formal processes, yeah, those usually get made up as you go along. And this is especially true when it comes to tracking expenses, where something that seems so simple can just completely spiral into a massive headache.
This quote just hits the nail on the head, doesn't it? When you're just starting out, managing a couple of expenses feels like a piece of cake. A quick text message here, a little note in a spreadsheet there. But then, as the team gets a little bigger and you're making more purchases, that beautiful simplicity just evaporates. And what's left is this growing, nagging sense of chaos.
And this slide really shows you what that drift looks like. You start out over on the left side. Everything feels totally manageable, it's all informal, no big deal. But then, almost without you noticing, you end up on the right, totally stressed out, drowning in a sea of scattered records, lost receipts, and numbers that just don't add up. It is such a common story, but the good news is it absolutely doesn't have to be your story.
Okay, so you might be thinking, it's just a few receipts, why does this matter so much? Well, it's really easy to write this off as just some boring admin task, but for a small business, the stakes are actually way higher than you'd think.
Here's the deal. Big companies, they have buffers. They can absorb small financial mistakes here and there. But when you're on a small team, every single dollar, every single decision, it just carries so much more weight. There is practically zero room for error, and you feel the shockwaves from any mistake almost instantly.
So when your expense tracking is a total mess, you get all these hidden costs that start bubbling up to the surface. All of a sudden, planning your cash flow feels more like a wild guess than a strategy. You start making really important decisions based on data that you know is incomplete. And all those little problems, well, they have this terrible habit of snowballing into much, much bigger ones.
But listen, there is a way out of this mess, and I promise it does not involve some crazy, complicated corporate system. It's really all about a simple, straightforward blueprint, a workflow that anyone, and I mean anyone on your team, can actually follow. So let's walk through it together.
Okay, here it is. The entire path to clarity, all laid out in 5 super logical steps. We're going to start by creating one single place for everything. Then, we'll get into the habit of logging expenses right away, connecting receipts to those expenses, using categories to see what's going on, and finally, locking in a weekly review. Let's break down each one.
First things first, you have to stop the scatter. Having expenses logged in emails and some in chat messages and others in a random spreadsheet, that's a recipe for total disaster. The absolute foundation of a stress-free system is having one and only one shared place where every single expense gets recorded. Period.
All right, step 2 is all about timing. You want to know the single biggest reason records get messed up? It's delay. It's waiting. When you wait even just a few hours to log a purchase, you start forgetting the important details. Was that lunch for a client meeting or team celebration? You might guess the amount wrong or forget the purpose entirely. Making it a habit to log things immediately is the game changer.
Now this is really interesting. Check out the benchmark on this slide. The secret is, if logging an expense takes more than 30 seconds, people just won't do it right away. They'll put it off. The system you use has to be incredibly fast and convenient. This number, less than 30 seconds, that's the magic ingredient to making Log It Now a real habit instead of just a nice idea.
Oh man, we have all been there, right? Frantically digging through your email inbox or scrolling through 1,000 photos on your phone, just desperate to find that one missing receipt. This step ends that nightmare for good. A really great workflow doesn't just store receipts somewhere. It links them directly to the expense entry the second you create it. No more separation, no more late-night stress.
Okay, this is where your expense tracking transforms from just boring data entry into actual business intelligence. Categorizing your expenses, things like transport, software, office supplies, it's not just about being neat. It's how you uncover the patterns. It's how you finally understand where your money is really going.
And a chart like this just shows you the power of that in an instant. See, without categories, this is all just a long, meaningless list of transactions. But with categories, you can see at a glance, boom, 35% of our money is going to software. Now that is a powerful insight you can actually use to make smarter financial decisions.
So many teams make the mistake of waiting until the end of the month to look at expenses. But by then, little errors have had weeks to grow and get tangled up into much bigger problems. A quick, weekly check-in is so much more effective. It lets you catch and fix mistakes while all the details are still fresh in everyone's memory.
And look, this weekly review doesn't need to be some big, formal meeting that everyone dreads. Seriously, it can be a quick 15-minute check-in. You just run through this simple list. Are all the expenses in? Are the receipts attached? Does anything look a little weird or unusual? Are they categories right? It's a tiny habit that keeps your entire financial system healthy and accurate.
You know, when you put these 5 steps into practice, what you get is something so much more valuable than just a clean spreadsheet. The real goal here isn't just about being organized, it's about building confidence.
First off, you get confidence in your numbers. You can finally look at a financial report and actually trust that the data staring back at you is real. And that feeling of trust, well, that's the bedrock of good financial management.
Second, you get the confidence that comes with being prepared. No more of those last-minute panic attacks during tax season or when a client asks for proof of purchase. You just know that every single receipt is right where it's supposed to be, ready to go.
And finally, you get the confidence to make smart, strategic business decisions. When your spending patterns are crystal clear, you can actually plan your budget effectively, cut costs that aren't helping you, and invest in growth with total certainty.
So I'll just leave you with this one question to think about. Take a really honest look at how your team is handling expenses right now. Is your current process building confidence, or is it just creating more confusion? The choice, and now the blueprint to fix it, is all yours.